Translate this, and my salary is yours.
The millionaire burst out laughing, but the black maid actually did it, and his jaw dropped. Naomi Brooks froze mid-wipe of the linen circle when Grant Reeves held up a thick stack of Chinese character pages under the conference lights, his voice steady, but locking in like a command line. Whoever translates this 30-page proposal within 48 hours will earn my daily rate of $50,000. The tip of his Italian leather shoe nudged Naomi's cleaning cart, pushing it slightly off course across the polished floor as if sweeping aside something unworthy of notice. A few chuckles flared around the glass table. Derek Walsh tapped his Harvard ring against his glass, the metallic ping spreading in waves through the boardroom before tossing a half-joking, half-contemptuous remark about Google Translate. Naomi bent lower her hand, still circling the cloth across walnut wood, slow, and even so the table stayed streak-free. In her breast pocket, her phone pulsed just loud enough for her to feel 72 hours until the apartment lock was changed. The red words "eviction hearing" blinked in her calendar app like an overloaded circuit, burning straight into her chest. $50,000 the hook Reeves dangled was the missing sum for her mother's hospital bills and court fees, plus a cushion for back rent. But the gulf between thrown aside and grasped stretched like a desert, filled with sandstorms of job titles and prejudice. Her fingers traced the cool jade surface of the pen, hidden in her uniform pocket, engraved with 4 characters, "Knowledge enlightens." A faint sandalwood scent rose a private memory. A cramped workroom, half the size of their kitchen where Robert Brooks, her father, once sketched GX500 schematics on graph paper in blue ink, pausing for a raspy cough before continuing about tolerances and thermal modeling as casually as dinner talk. He left the firm after a strategic restructure. Health insurance vanished overnight. Then a CT scan result arrived like an unsigned letter. Then he was gone, leaving $156 in medical debt and a rubber band-bound technical diary. Her mother, Min Lu, a Beijing engineering graduate lacking U.S. credential equivalence, took on 3 cleaning jobs to keep medication flowing. Naomi Black, raised in the weave of English, Spanish, and Chinese, canceled her scholarship-worked nights, cared for her mother at dawn, slept in scraps of daylight, freelanced translations under the alias Night Owl. She became the woman who knew everything inside the company, but was allowed to be no one. Inside the company, she knew when strategy meetings moved. She knew product roadmap code names. She knew diversity ratios dying on glossy slides. 87% of maintenance workers were people of color. 94% of executives were white. Numbers didn't need whispers. They spoke for themselves when laid side by side. The Shanghai stamped folder landed on Reeves's desk at 10:17 a.m. Sealed tight, Handtech Innovations logo, bold enough for Naomi to read while wiping down the trophy cabinet. Reeves skimmed eyes, halting for a breath no one else would notice. But she did. By noon, the executive floor buzzed with controlled panic. Urgent emails fired like discount fireworks meeting schedules. Shifted assistants dialed frantically. Daniel Lin, the head of translation, was in Beijing, his deputies tied up in Tokyo. Reeves gathered the board, set the folder on the table, spoke of exclusive production doubling market share reply within 72 hours. Naomi stood behind the credenza, wiping condensation rings off glass, and from her angle the cover words appeared like kin quality control, 15% tolerance modeling. Walsh flipped a few pages, sneered about outsourcing. Someone laughed. Reeves tilted his head, tossing out lightly. Even the janitor could try if janitor school taught Mandarin. The laughter rose sharper, spreading like a shortwave ripple, brushing the woman behind them, setting a water carafe carefully on its tray. Naomi bent further, watching her shadow shrink against the stone floor. Inside her mind, 2 clocks lit at once. 48 hours for the translation, 72 hours until eviction court, 2 rails running parallel bound to intersect at some unnamed crossing. Her palm pressed over the pocket where the jade pen lay cool and still. Its chill steadied her breathing. Words build bridges, her father used to say. But where can a bridge of words reach if no one wants to look? At night, the building grew quieter. Naomi pushed her cart through security with her time card, got a nod from the guard, a casual question about weekend overtime, and she answered shortly, hand opening out of habit. Mom needs medicine. The conference room glared white, the board layered with black marker, then another red scrawl on top. Naomi paused, uncapped the jade pen, the faint sandalwood scent rising like a timely reminder. She reread 3 entries, Tolerance QC Protocol Exclusive Manufacturing. The daytime draft had skipped half a sentence structure, a homonym slip, dragging an entire branch of meaning off course. She corrected 3 key sections. Concise but exact to the last stroke restored thermal flow modeling to its rightful slot, struck out minimal supervision, and replaced it with strict quality control procedures, reaffirmed the 15% tolerance in proper context. At the bottom corner, she signed Small Night Owl. Not for glory, but so that if anyone noticed, they'd know a pair of eyes watched for accuracy, not for titles. Morning. Naomi was wheeling past the meeting room door when she heard Reeves ask, "Who is Night Owl?" Security confirmed, no unauthorized entry. Derek Walsh, standing by the board, wiped the small signature away with a sponge, as if it were dust, and said in a modestly rehearsed tone that he'd been self-studying, didn't want to speak until he was good enough, but yesterday had been urgent. Reeves clapped his shoulder, "Take the lead." The word of empowerment dropped like a gavel at an auction's end. Naomi's grip whitened around the cart handle. It was the feeling of someone laying a brick straight, yet forbidden from leaving a name. The wall stood firm, but the name was erased with one swipe of a sponge. By noon came security's notice, new cameras installed on the executive floor. All cleaning completed before 7 p.m. until further notice. The after-hours door, the one Naomi used as Night Owl, was sealed shut in a single command. She shifted tactics. Gorilla translation bathroom breaks with 1 foot. Bracing the door papers spread on the lid like on a stand. Supply room, at lunch, the air heavy with detergent, and new plastic cold fluorescent lights washing out half the text. She snapped photos page by page, scribbled notes on company scrap, tucked them into an old folder. When she reached workforce optimization, the lines pressed deeper. Reduce a minimum of 300 positions within 60 days of signing an exchange for preferential production rates. Calm words, sharp as a blade. Her mother's cousin had just landed a job on that line after years drifting. Naomi leaned back against the storeroom door, tilted her face to the ceiling, counted her breaths, 1, 2, 3. Language was power when placed right, and a wound when used to soften a cut. The next morning, Matt Stone played a grainy camera clip, a shadow in the conference room at night. Reeves said investigate all with an emphasis on especially maintenance. When Naomi's turn came, she dropped her voice into the template maintenance staff had long used like a passport. No understand problem. I clean only, no touch papers. English bent short structure deliberately, wrong a borrowed skin. She hated it, but it saved her. Afterward, Derek Walsh lingered, tapping his Harvard ring against the table's edge, tuck, steady like a countdown. You understand English very well when I assign cleaning tasks. Strange that at other times you don't. Naomi kept her eyes down, silent, because any word could be twisted. That afternoon she opened her locker. The jade pen was gone. Her pulse staggered. Walsh blocked her in the break room, spinning the pen between 2 fingers, voice half mocking, half threatening. The engraving says, knowledge, doesn't it? An item like this could be used for industrial espionage. I've reported it. The next morning, HR's Karen Boyd slid a paper across official warning for unauthorized item suspicious conduct. Without the pen, Naomi's hand felt bare, as if missing a piece of memory. 34 hours until eviction. Her mother hospitalized with high blood pressure, the ambulance deposit draining their last savings. The second clock accelerated. At noon, while Walsh was in a meeting, Naomi sat at his desk, opened his hard drive, and skimmed through the translation files. Key phrases had been swapped minimal supervision instead of strict QC procedures, personnel adjustment instead of eliminate at least 300 positions, a tangled web of softened words blunting the sharp edge of the decision. When she turned back, Walsh was leaning against the doorway, voice pitched just for the two of them. Your mother's Minlu Wright papers must have expired long ago. Shame. That agency's very busy these days, but they do pick up calls. The threat hung in the air like a thin steel wire, no blood, but strangling tight. Naomi froze for half a beat, then gripped her cart handle and pushed on. Behind her, the Harvard ring tapped tuk-tuk, following her. 9:00 a.m. The boardroom was full, the lights set deliberately not too warm. Derek Walsh stood before the screen, pointing at slides 15% cheaper than market, minimal QC, just rearrange personnel. Naomi poured water, her hand steady. When he pronounced Liu Dong Moxing, wrong tone sliding, Naomi frowned just slightly. Grant Reeves turned his head. Problem with the coffee. Naomi looked up, voice even like placing an object back where it belonged. Liu Dong Moxing means thermal flow modeling. Nothing to do with personnel. The room shifted in one beat, wrists stopped clicking pens, eyes refocused. You speak Chinese? Reeves asked. Chinese, English, Spanish, Naomi replied without looking up from the papers. I can read Japanese and Korean. You're just a cleaner Walsh shot back, as if that line could close the matter. Naomi pulled out her phone, opened her night owl profile rating 4. 98 over 400 technical business documents. She named Robert Brooks her father, who built the company's Asia platform before the restructure, who had taught her the terminology from childhood, who left behind the jade pen Walsh had taken. She raised her head. Page 16, paragraph 4, mandates cutting at least 300 positions in 60 days, violates 3 current labor agreements. Pens froze mid-air. Reeves's gaze recalculated, not sympathetic, but assessing. You can translate the whole thing, 60%'s done, Naomi said. The rest needs time and conditions. She set her terms a written contract, $50,000 if delivered on time. Return of the jade pen, job security regardless of outcome, confidentiality about her mother. The assistant looked at Reeves. Reeves said draft the papers. Walsh pulled the jade pen from his breast pocket, handing it back like dropping a pebble he didn't want. Naomi entered a small side room. The door closed. The hum of air conditioning became a metronome. She typed. By 3:00 a.m., her eyes burned, nearly 85% complete. She noted hand tech raised QC standards 15% above industry average, no minimal anywhere. A text from her neighbor, keep her mother one more day, need $200 deposit. She pressed her forehead to her hand for a minute. If she won, she saved her mother. If she lost everything. Crash. Coffee spilled hot and brown rivers cutting across pages. Walsh stood there holding an empty cup, his face carrying a concern that never touched his eyes. Clumsy. The laptop screen flickered, then died. His voice softened. Don't worry, I moved your file to my secure drive. Maybe technical error? 4 hours left. A message from the landlord eviction team pushed earlier to tomorrow morning for repeated late payments. Naomi pressed napkins over the coffee, watching blue ink spread like a bruise. She rewrote from memory, piecing together fragments still dry, with what she recalled, patching them whole. 8:47, Reeves entered with Walsh eyes sweeping over the messy stack. "People should stay in their lanes," Reeves said, turning to his assistant, Draft Termination. Naomi lifted her head, her voice not loud but straight as steel. "Wait." She dug into her bag, pulled out the rubber-banded GX500 journal, opened to the thermal diagram tolerance figures annotations. Reeves paused a beat, then nodded. 10 minutes. 10 minutes short, yet wide as an entire night. Naomi didn't explain, didn't justify. She translated. The jade pen slid across paper sandalwood, holding her heartbeat steady. At 8:58, she placed the completed translation on the table just as the big screen lit up. Eric Hahn appeared, with the Han Tech team beside him, Ken Zhang, Robert Brooks's former colleague. Ken smiled, speaking in Chinese that it was an honor to meet Robert's daughter, the one he'd mentioned in countless meetings. Naomi answered fluently, Reeves's eyes darting between her and the screen like a man watching a play without subtitles. Eric Hahn continued in Chinese, Naomi interpreting seamlessly into the air. They had deliberately made the document complex to test whether Reeves still carried foundational competence and labor ethics. The ambiguous workforce clause was a scale to see how the company weighed its own priorities. Naomi turned back to the screen, asked in Chinese, was the 300-worker clause an intention or a test point? Eric nodded. You saw it right. Since Robert left, we have been concerned. Concerned, a word placed lightly but heavy in weight. She's making this up. Walsh snapped, like yanking a curtain over truth just revealed. Naomi tapped her phone, projecting a different camera angle footage from the night she double-checked the sweep schedule showing Walsh spilling coffee across her desk, deleting files in a desktop corner. The boardroom sank into a silence that felt colored. Reeves watched his voice low and flat. "Mr. Walsh, you're terminated. Security." The door opened. Matt Stone stood there, a path cleared for a man unwilling to step through. Naomi didn't look after him. Her eyes stayed on the contract. Eric Hahn delivered the close "we" sign if Ms. Brooks serves as cultural technical liaison for the project. A simple condition, but it shifted the axis of the room. Reeves checked his watch, 9 admired. He checked the numbers in his mind, Asian market about to bloom, or wither stock price waiting for news. He said agreed, the assistant printed words spooling out like a belt of live rounds. Reeves signed a $50,000 check as promised. An email from Han Tech landed within a minute, a $50,000 bonus reserved for Naomi's cultural consultancy. $100,000 was not just money, it was air-filling lungs that had been clamped shut. It was the no that broke tomorrow morning's lock change. It was a hospital receipt stamped paid in full, laid on the table like a stone blocking the wind. What remained was language. Naomi and the legal team revised the clauses, kept strict QC protocols and 15% tolerance, as in the original, struck the mandatory 300 layoffs, replacing them with a retraining program with timelines, budgets, and measurable outcomes, bound compliance to 3 internal labor agreements. Small words redirected a great river, not because they were pretty, but because they were in the right place. Reeves looked at Naomi the way one looks at a precision tool long owned but never used. "I underestimated you." He didn't say it. He said, "Good." But Naomi heard the rest in the silence between those 2 letters. As the internal cameras recorded the signing for archives, Naomi felt the jade pen heavier in her hand, not heavy like a burden, but heavy like a seal. The sandalwood scent was no longer just memory. It became the fragrance of a legal room where things were finally called by their true names. She thought of her father's words. Words build bridges. She had just set the main beam in place. 6 months passed in a rhythm of morning meetings and flights connecting one airport to the next. Naomi stood before the floor-to-ceiling glass looking down at the city she once tried to slip through like a shadow, her hand resting lightly on a freshly oiled walnut desk. On it sat a photo of her mother, Min, in physical therapy, her smile tired but steady, a vase of white orchids, and the jade pen set on a beveled crystal stand. A small plaque at the desk's edge read, Director of International Relations. The first thing she did in her new role was establish the Robert Brooks Scholarship Fund for employees' children pursuing technical or language studies. At the same time, she worked with legal to revise layoff policies, adding community impact reviews requiring multilingual training materials and designing a secure whistleblower channel for credit theft. The Han Tech contract language, now corrected, boosted Asian market share by pleasant 32% in 2 quarters. Employee retention rose pleasant 24% thanks to cultural shifts. At the shareholders' meeting, Grant Reeves gave a single line. Miss Brooks's perspective brought unexpected value. Translated into the unspoken, I was wrong about her. But Naomi didn't need to hear it. The numbers stood behind her and spoke. She launched the Hidden Talents program, weekly emails, inviting frontline staff to present hidden skills in 15-minute show-and-tell sessions logged into an internal database directly tied to internal recruiting. In the first quarter, 28 people were reassigned a guard with a Nigerian engineering degree in QA, a cafeteria worker fluent in 5 languages, as a language coordinator and IT technician with product sketches joining R&D. It wasn't magic, it was structure rewritten in words. Derek Walsh disappeared from the halls. His name surfaced now and then in small articles on professional ethics or in a community college syllabus under business communication. Reeves, ever pragmatic, still called Naomi's ascent lightning in a bottle, rare, hard to repeat. Naomi only smiled when she heard the phrase quoted at a reception. There was no lightning, just circuits covered in dust. Wipe them clean, and the current had always been there. Her phone buzzed. Board meeting, 15 minutes. Naomi opened the first slide, 2 numbers, +132% and +24% side by side, a pair every boardroom could read. She lifted the jade pen not to sign, but to anchor the flow of words in her hand. Entering the room, she greeted in 3 languages. Good morning, buenos dias, zao shang, hao. A few small nods followed like shards of glass catching sunlight. Outside, the city roared. Inside, sandalwood from the pen's casing, fresh paper walnut, wood, 3 faint scents layered into a room where she belonged. As she sat down, Naomi recalled a question once thrown at her. Why were you silent for so long? She remembered the cart shoved aside her signature, erased coffee, spilled the ring. Tapping talk, the finish by 7 p.m. email, the bells of 10:17, 8, 58 numbers that had sound. Then she remembered her father's line, words build bridges between worlds. Not all bridges are stone or steel. Some are made of words, voices, and the right names for things seemingly invisible until they hold the full weight of a life. Naomi's bridge began with $50,000 tossed out like a dare, doubled with $100 returned as commitment, and carried forward by countless punctuation marks placed where they belonged. After the meeting, Naomi walked the executive hallway where her cart once screeched a short line across the floor. A young maintenance worker in uniform passed her, hesitated, then smiled. Good morning, Miss Brooks. The right name, simple as that, was its own small bridge. Naomi nodded, walked on. Ahead lay the desk. The words, needing their tones, reset the clauses that had to be bound by language no one could soften into a cut. And if anyone asked how she went from janitor to director, Naomi could answer without raising her voice, place one word, right then another, until the bridge is long enough for others to cross too. From a jade pen and a handful of words placed true, Naomi built the bridge from invisible to seen, reminding us that sometimes just daring to speak shifts the old order. Question: Have you ever been underestimated but had a moment where placing just the right word flipped everything around? Share your story in the comments. If this story moved, you don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next one.